Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this second session where we are now going to not just look at policy, but we're going to and technical things, but we're actually going to have some practitioners who have actually executed single windows and Asikuda across the world. And I want to welcome each and every one of you here, and of course to our panel. So to start us off from El Salvador, Jose Luis Maradiaga, who will talk to us about the strategic vision of El Salvador Customs and their ongoing digital transformation. We want to understand the pillars that were associated with the current priorities of the reform and the modernization of El Salvador's customs. So, please, Jose Luis.
Buenos días, tengan todos y todas.
Good morning to all.
Mi nombre es José Luis Hernández Maradiaga.
I am José Luis from El Salvador.
Soy subdirector general de Aduanas El Salvador.
I am the Deputy General Director for Customs of El Salvador.
Y como representante de ese país es un gusto estar en este evento tan importante en el cual vamos a compartir algunas buenas prácticas y algunas experiencias que hemos tenido en Aduana El Salvador.
As a representative of El Salvador, it is for me a great pleasure to share with you our practical experience in implementing best practice within Asikuda, within Asikuda project implementation there. Continúa.
Bueno, quisiera compartir primero con todos ustedes que en nuestro país a partir del año 2019, como muchos conocerán, tenemos un presidente, Nayib Bukele, que es muy conocido a nivel mundial, y a partir de ese año El Salvador está viviendo transformaciones importantes.
As you might know, since 2019, in El Salvador, we had a new president that is bringing to the country structural reforms.
Todas esas transformaciones y esos cambios positivos que hemos tenido se pueden ver tanto en temas económicos, de seguridad, y también estos cambios han llegado hasta la aduana de El Salvador.
All those changes is also related to the economic fields, political side, but also in customs.
En Aduana El Salvador nosotros tenemos claro que dos de los objetivos principales es facilitar el comercio exterior o el comercio internacional y también ejercer un control aduanero adecuado.
In El Salvador Customs Administration, we have two main objectives. The first one is trade facilitation, and secondly,
Control aduanero.
Customs control.
Para lograr esos objetivos, el gobierno de El Salvador y la aduana como tal hemos apostado a la modernización tanto de las instalaciones aduaneras como de los procesos aduaneros.
To achieve this, so there has been huge investment in ICT and also in customs procedures.
Con el gobierno del presidente Nayib Bukele, en los últimos 3 años se han construido 2 aduanas completamente nuevas y esperamos en 2026 concretar un proyecto que iniciamos este año de construcción de 3 aduanas completamente nuevas.
Okay, with the support of the President Bukele, 2 customs infrastructure has been setting up completely, and until 2025, 3 more should be built.
El objetivo de la construcción de aduanas nuevas es porque nosotros pretendemos estar acorde al flujo comercial que nuestro país está teniendo. El comercio internacional ha aumentado y la única manera de poder tener unos procesos aduaneros ágiles es teniendo unas instalaciones modernas.
This policy to have modern infrastructure is also due to the fact that the trade volume is increasing. So then the government found that is necessary also to invest in infrastructure and in information and communication technology.
Un proyecto importante que estamos ejecutando y que también es parte de un desafío es llegar a tener una aduana completamente digital, con procesos sistematizados, automatizados, y en este caso nos apoyamos del sistema SIDUNEA, como ya sabemos es un sistema aduanero computarizado, el cual nos ha facilitado nuestra actividad en la aduana.
Yeah, we have been using ASICUDA worlds to achieve a complete digital customs.
Además, consideramos que este sistema es muy aceptado por todos nuestros importadores y exportadores. A manifestación de estos hay una facilitación en cuanto a acceder a nuestros procesos aduaneros a través de este sistema.
Our partners, our economic operators are confident with the way that the ASICUDA system is working in our country, and we intend to move further in terms of facilitating trade. You will understand that my translation is not literal, okay, but yeah.
También comentarles que en El Salvador, como una herramienta de facilitación del comercio, estamos en un proceso de integración profunda con la República de Guatemala y Honduras.
Also, we have an integration policy that is undergoing with Guatemala and Honduras, the neighboring countries, regional integration.
Esta unión que tenemos nos ha permitido, como mencioné, agilizar el comercio. Además, hemos implementado la declaración anticipada de mercancías, lo cual es una herramienta completamente digital que facilita el comercio, reduce los costos, reduce los tiempos, porque el importador o exportador puede realizarla en cualquier parte del mundo, las 24 horas del día, los 7 días de la semana.
Thanks to this, so we are able now to receive in anticipation, by anticipation, the information, okay, and the economic operators can perform and interact with customs administration with us anywhere, anytime, 24/7. Yes, thank you.
Por último, como otro punto importante que me gustaría compartir,
Another point that I want to share with you
es que a nivel de gobierno central tenemos la ventanilla única de comercio exterior,
for the at the level of the government, at central level, we have the single window for trade.
que esta no es administrada por la aduana de El Salvador, sino por el Banco Central de Reserva, que es una institución pública.
Yeah, but inside El Salvador is led by the central bank, which is a public institution.
Esta ventanilla única es la que agiliza todos los permisos, toda la documentación previa a la importación y a la exportación.
This single window for trade is the tool that facilitates and give more speed to obtain in importation, for import and export, permits, license, certificates, and other documents, as mentioned by Jaime Heller earlier.
La ventanilla única es administrada por una institución diferente a la aduana. Eso nos exige tener una buena relación con todas las instituciones del Estado.
Due to the fact that the single window for trade is managed by another institution than customs, this forced us to develop and to keep the good relationship.
Una de las fortalezas que ha tenido el gobierno actual es la buena relación entre todas las instituciones públicas que directa o indirectamente estamos relacionados a la importación y a la exportación de mercancías.
And also the government is keeping a good relationship with all trade logistic chains partners in El Salvador.
Con todas estas políticas, lo que hemos logrado es facilitar el comercio internacional y ejercer un control aduanero conforme a toda la normativa que tenemos.
As a result, we achieve to facilitate trade and to implement controls based on our national regulation. Madam say that you don't have words. Finish?
Finish.
Yes, it's finished.
Yes.
Yeah. The video?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting because unlike many of us here, El Salvador has hard borders between countries as opposed to seaports. So we have land-based ports as well as seaports and airports. So very interesting how that is taking place. Now I'm going to quickly move to Jamaican Customs Agency. Andre Williams is the Chief Information Officer and has been in charge of implementation of both ASECUDA and the single window for trade in Jamaica. So quickly, Andre, what are the main goals of the Jamaica Customs Agency in building the single window? And also, what are the basic achievements that you've had to date? What are things that you're proud that we've been able to go forward with? Andre.
All right, thank you, and good morning to my fellow panelists and for those in the audience. Firstly, just to say thanks to the government of Barbados and also to UNCTAD as well for this forum. We really set out as an objective the improvements in efficiency, ensuring that we have a transparent environment and that, of course, we can see a faster processing, coordinated efforts, and the streamlining of our processes. The environment prior to the single window was one that was disjointed. We only had 5 agencies who were using semi-automated means. Some had systems that were primarily focused on import permits, but then it still required persons to visit the offices to make payments and to collect, at times, the physical copies of the approved documents. But the objectives of the single window are very clear in regards to improving the service delivery for all the government agencies. We have over 24 agencies who are involved in issuing a license, a permit, a certificate, or any other approval for the trading of goods that are crossing our borders. We would have digitized our services at customs, and we're also bounded by these inefficient processes because these documents also have to come to customs for verification. And of course, in implementing the ASCODA system, 90% of our public-facing services are fully digitized. And so we would have been bounded by the manual documents that are coming from the government agencies, and hence the importance of the single window, not just for customs efficiency, but for the entire logistics and supply chain. We have thus far developed services for 12 government agencies. The last, which is now being added, or the current one rather, which is now being added, is the Ministry of Health. And with them on board, we will have just about 80% of the regulatory approvals that are required for the movement of goods. So this is actually a significant step in regards to completing the implementation of the single window. So though 12, we have 8 more to go, but in regards to the impact on trade. What we have seen or sought to implement is to ensure that we have a single point of submission to include supporting documents, single point of processing between one or multiple government agencies, single point of payment, and also single point of approval. And that data must be seamlessly sent into the customs management system. And that thereafter is referenced. So there is no further need to be submitting these additional documents. It is referenced electronically. We have achieved that, and it has had a huge impact on the overall throughput of cargo clearance at the ports and warehouses. Today, we are seeing now about 89% of commercial cargo being approved for clearance, the documentary approval being completed by customs and the other regulatory agencies in approximately 89% within 24 hours or less. And that's a vast difference from where we started. The services within a single window, we have ensured that we have the necessary provisions for 100% online payment. And of course, as I mentioned before, that the output of that can be referenced electronically, both for import and export. And of course, the coordination between the border regulatory agencies is also another very important fact. We didn't just seek to digitize the services, but there's a significant amount of re-engineering and optimization of the processes, removing redundant documents, doing harmonization according to the WCO's data model as well, which is very important for us, to ensure that we can not only provide services in country, but also be compliant and also have the ability to exchange data with other international systems, the GEN systems, the CITES for health certificates, etc. We have seen an immense improvement in the services being delivered by the regulatory agencies. We take, for example, electronic certificates of origin, a single application which produces the electronic document along with the commercial invoice and where it is required, the JN1, JN2 CARICOM invoice through a single process. This would normally have been 3 documents, but is now being achieved through a single process and a single approval. And we've also ensured that the data that is coming from our single window can be verified electronically. So all our electronic documents will bear a QR code which can be scanned and the data be validated using any smart device, right? So that has improved the reliability of the information that is coming through the single window. In regards to the overall turnaround time as well, we have seen, I must mention compliance. We have seen a number of challenges that were previously being faced by the respective border regulatory agencies being resolved in terms of the timeliness of data, the quality of data, and adhering to the regulatory rules, that the system has fostered greater compliance for traders, and of course that has resulted in shorter and less interventions, and of course obtaining approvals in much less time. In regards to one or multiple agencies who are also involved, perhaps in issuing an approval for a particular commodity, the system also has the intelligence now to route those to one or multiple agencies in either sequential or concurrent process. So our trader doesn't have to worry about moving between the respective regulatory agencies. The services are being accessed, whether it's on a smart device or at office or home. They can simply apply. They are presented with the requirements for the particular commodity, and that application is routed seamlessly between the respective agencies. And of course, if there's any need for any additional information, that exchange is also managed through the system, and then the approval is granted electronically. On the tail end of the process, this has certainly also contributed to the improvements of our clearance process. The data, as I mentioned, is referenced by the customs broker, the exporter within the ASCUDA system. And currently, we would have expanded our services within the customs management system to include 17 other government agencies. And that is to ensure that we have greater coordination, removal of overlaps, and reduce intervention using risk management, of course, which has brought us to this 89% of approvals being granted within that 24 window or less. In fact, 70% of that approval is within the first 8 business hours, and the additional 19% within the remaining hours. So we have made significant improvements. The objective of customs, of course, is not just to digitize our services, but to ensure that all our regulatory partners are operating with the same level of efficiency. Bearing in mind that while we sit at the hub, we're not the only person or agency that is involved. And so we have to extend our services where possible, develop new services if required, and also through the single window to ensure that we have fully digitized processes for issuing of the license permits and certificates by the regulatory agencies. And definitely, we have been seeing tangible evidence of the improvements. Our environment is far more predictable. We're seeing where our larger traders are now moving from port to shelf because they expect that the goods will be released within a particular time frame. Of course, I did mention that our objective is to be established as a digital customs authority. We have paid close attention to the WCO's digital customs maturity model. That has been one of our guidelines. The partnership with UNCTAD as well has aided us tremendously. In 2014, we started this partnership, and certainly we have been seeing the results. We have also been able to develop new services to meet our needs. There's a question earlier in regards to access to the source code, and I can tell you this has been one of the best working relationships because we're not bounded just by what the vendor is providing you. We are also able to develop new modules through partnership with UNCTAD. We have developed a number of modules, advanced rulings, appeals, overtime goods, a post-clearance audit module, even an electronic passenger processing module, which allows us to integrate with other law enforcement agencies in Jamaica, for example, immigration as well, for the electronic clearance of passengers. So if you come to Jamaica, you'll see that we would have implemented electronic gates. We have mobile apps for payments and, of course, accessing logistics information. So all in all, we have now fostered a digital ecosystem which has greatly improved our trading environment. As it pertains to further integration, this is, of course, a precursor services for obtaining license and clearance. There's also the logistics aspect, and we have also been able, through the continued partnership, been able to successfully implement the port community system, which has to do with the logistic services, integration with the terminal operators, providing services such as trucker appointment systems, And again, this is all a contributor factor to reducing or simplifying the requirements for gaining your approval to move the goods from the port. And so we have a far more transparent and predictable environment and greater compliance, because we're no longer, for the most part, dealing with paper, but the electronic movement of data, which reduces compromise and ensuring that we have accurate information being replicated right across the board for all the respective agencies and private sector partners, whether it's the warehouse keepers or the terminals. So this has really been our experience. I want to mention one fact, though, before I stop. I know, right? We looked at six primary documents that customs would have, it would have been a cost both to customs and to our traders. We were saving, since implementation of ASICode, an average of $126 million. Now, there are about 30 documents that we've removed. We just looked at the cost of six. And in the last 9 years, that has cumulatively been equated to over $1 billion in saving. The saving of those documents has actually covered the costs of the technology that we have implemented. And we're just speaking about the removal of physical documents, and that's a cost that was being borne both by customs and the trade. In regards to revenue, when we started, we were saying 10% within the first 6 months. We were collecting, I think, $104 billion in 2014, and now we are well over $300 billion in 2024. And it just shows the improvements in regards to simplicity of trade, increasing compliance, increase in terms of the partnership between customs and the other regulatory agencies, and an efficient environment for trade. And that is where we ensure that we balance compliance, law enforcement, and trade facilitation. All right, thank you much.
Thank you very much, Jaime. Sorry, I'm looking at Jaime. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move to another small island developing state, Vanuatu. And we have Mr. Stanley Triff, who is the program manager, and we want to hear about what your experience has been. We heard about Jamaica. Now we want to hear about how you have, what your experience has been, and also, you know, some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcame them. Yeah?
Thank you, Patricia, and greetings from the Pacific. Took me 21 hours on the plane to get here, and it's now 1:30 in the morning, so I'll try and stay awake. But thank you to UNCTAD for inviting Vanuatu to participate in this prestigious event, and also the government and people of Barbados for hosting us. So maybe I'll just give some perspective. Vanuatu, population of 300,000 in the Pacific, small island nation, smaller than Fiji. I'm sure you've heard of Fiji. So we're a bit smaller than Fiji, heavily dependent on imports in our country. So just with the effort we've done with adopting a single window system, and we've heard from the previous panel this morning, is we started off having to adopt Ascuda World. So we've been using Ascuda Plus since the 90s. But it wasn't an overnight journey. We started back in 2012. We had a few assessments that needs to be done to convince the government to the investment. So the project is put into 3 phases. And the first phase was to implement Ascuda World. So that was the first phase. We didn't take it in isolation. We take it as including us in implementing Ascuda World is the first phase, and then we moved into the other agencies. In the second phase, we got about 7 agencies connected, and then now we're on the third phase to get on another 5 agencies to be connected, and primarily for the same reasons that we've heard from the other panelists, to include the other regulatory agencies, because it's just not customs who regulate, or we basically there to facilitate trade, but we don't regulate the imports or exports of certain commodities. So we need to get the other agencies on board. And we're happy we're about looking at this document, about 80%. And then hopefully in the third phase, we'll get the other 20% of the regulatory agencies on board. I think the benefits, they speak for themselves, and I echoed the other panelists of what we are experiencing in Vanuatu. And it's not an overnight journey. The change management is a challenge. Basically, I would say it's because the other agencies, their priorities might not be in digitization, maybe not prepared for it, but we see the need for it. And now that we've included the 7 agencies, the other agencies are more forthcoming because they've seen the benefits. We don't have to break down doors to convince them of getting automated. So the system itself and the project is speaking for themselves to convince the other agencies to get on board. So I think that's in short for me, and I'm happy to take any questions later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we're certainly seeing a pattern here of experiences, very similar experiences across the region, our region, and of course in the Pacific as well. And one of the organizations that are critical certainly in the beginning, because we've heard that the best thing to do is to start off with ASACUDA, and World Customs Organization is critical in supporting customs all over the world in their whole modernization process. So, Ozem Soyasanali, yes, she's a senior technical officer for facilitation with the World Customs Organization. And I know that you provide lots of tools for the various members of customs across the world. So I know you have I think you have a presentation?
Yes, indeed.
Right? So if we could perhaps have the presentation, and over to you to guide us through the role of the World Customs Organization.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Patricia, for giving me the floor. And also thank you very much, UN Trade and Development colleagues, for inviting the World Customs Organization to these important sessions. It's a big honor for me to be here and speaking on the single window experience of the WCO in general. As we all know, the single window concept is a system that enables international traders to submit regulatory documents at a single location and in a single entity. The benefits of this system is quite clear, as some of the colleagues have already mentioned in this session. It streamlines processes, reduces duplication, cuts down on processing times, and of course, significantly lowers the cost of doing business. One of the cornerstone tools developed by the World Customs Organization in this area is the WCO Single Window Compendium. This document indeed serves as a kind of practical guide for countries aiming to implement single window or improve their existing single window systems. The single window compendium outlines the best practices provided by our members, provides detailed technical guidance in terms of the implementation of single window, and shares real-world examples of successful implementation from all over the world. It is, of course, designed as a living document, and we try to include the continuously evolving developments and insights from the field in this regard. To briefly mention about the background of this compendium, it was approved by the WCO Council in 2017 as a compendium titled Building the Single Window Environment. This document is structured in 2 distinct volumes, each volume divided into 9 parts to gather the different needs from our community. Volume 1 of the compendium is an executive guide It delves into the numerous strategic considerations essential for the implementation of the single window systems from a business viewpoint. It outlines the crucial preparatory steps that need to be considered before diving into the more technical aspects of the single window implementation. On the other hand, the second volume of the compendium is tailored for practitioners. It provides an in-depth exploration of the technical elements, standards, and practices. Those are very important for the development and maintenance of a single window system in a country. Both volumes are, of course, instrumental in guiding our members in terms of the implementation, this complex implementation process of establishing and also maintaining a single window in the country. In the next slide, I would like to mention about the update of the single window compendium. Of course, recognizing the rapid pace of the technological advancements and changing landscape of the global trade, WCO is making efforts to keep our compendium up to date. The target for the updated compendium is a strong emphasis on interoperability first and also data harmonization. It underscores the importance of standardizing data formats and protocols to ensure seamless data exchange among the parties involved in the single window, also among the countries in the whole trade environment. Let me also highlight the ongoing cooperation between the WCO and UNCTAD, UN Trade and Development, in that regard. This cooperation is indeed very important for us. It is particularly significant because it leverages the strengths and expertise of both organizations. And UNCTAD's was experience in trade and development, coordinated, combined with the WCO's deep experience on trade facilitation and customs area, creates a powerful energy that definitely benefits member countries and global trade community at large. In this regard, a key aspect of this cooperation is recently discussed and agreed on the WCO Permanent Technical Committee. Recently took place in April in Brussels. The colleagues from UNCTAD were there, and the Permanent Technical Committee, which is a kind of specialized middle-level decision-making body at the WCO, agreed on establishing a mini-group in terms of the update of the single window compendium. This mini-group brings representatives from our members as well as from our observers, including, of course, UNCTAD and other international organizations, to ensure that this updated compendium remains a cutting-edge resource. In the end, what we expect from this collaborative approach is not only to enhance the quality of the compendium, but also fosters a sense of ownership and also commitment among stakeholders. In the next slide, I will briefly mention about the process of developing a single window system. As I just said, this is quite a complex system. I don't want to go into the details of this picture on the screen. This is just to, first of all, show the process is quite complicated, and it involves several key stages that ensure the comprehensive and strategic approach. Just to briefly say, this journey starts with the single window concept, which emphasizes a collaboration mindset, stakeholder consultation, and strategic planning and policy convergence. And the next step involves creating a strategic business case for the single window approach. And upon the approval of this, a single window initiative is launched in the country, focusing on program management and project formulation. This phase, of course, involves detailed planning and also the establishment of necessary framework to support project implementation. Following the approval of the preferred project by the parties involved, we move to the single window environment phase. This stage indeed involves the actual implementation of the project in the country. This is the first step towards a real implementation of single window in the country. And at this point, we also establish a real legal entity, which is called either single window operator or orchestrator, let's say, which oversees the operational aspect of the system. Indeed, by following this kind of very well-structured system, countries can develop a robust single window system and also this streamline threat processes and enhance efficiency in the implementation. If we also take a quick look at the critical success factors for the single window implementation, as we are short in terms of the timing, I will not go through all of them, but I will like to highlight the first one, political will, as the most important part of this process. Of course, the other 9 included in the slide are quite important as well for the successful implementation of this process, but without political will and without strong political support, high-level commitment to drive into this system, it will not be possible for the countries to talk about single window and implement this in the country. In the next slide, I will slightly mention about the challenges. Of course, this system is quite complex and not easy to implement. We know this. What are the most known or most discussed challenges in this regard? The first one is the complexity of the aligning various government agencies and stakeholders. Each agency may have different approaches, different procedures, different data requirements. This is the first challenge that we face all time. And the second one is the challenge of technological readiness, of course. And in order to overcome these challenges, WCO advocates a phased implementation strategy that allows countries to gradually build up their single window systems. Instead of implementing the single window concept in one go, we advise our members to follow this four-stage implementation program for their countries. And for the details of this stage, you can have a look at the WCO single window compendium, first of all. And here I would like to highlight for the interested countries and members the technical assistance and capacity building support that WCO is providing our members. If you need any support in terms of the implementation of single window in your country, please feel free to approach us. We are providing both technical and organizational support in terms of the implementation of single window country in all our 186 members. This is either in the way of a kind of national event, national work in the country, or also we organize many other regional activities just to learn from the experience of others from the region or from the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Özlem. So, earlier on this morning, the minister spoke about e-commerce and the expansion of e-commerce and the impact that the expansion of e-commerce was having on the whole system of transformation, digitization, and the movement of goods. So we're very happy to have Javier Garcia, who is Customs Program Manager with the Universal Postal Union. And I'm sure that you are going to help us to understand how the World Customs Union is interacting with UNCTAD and ASICUDA to make e-commerce even more, to deal with the risk associated with e-commerce going forward.
Thank you, Patricia. So we'll try to explain our perspective in dealing with the risks and challenges in e-commerce through the postal stream. Maybe first I'd like to thank UNCTAD for inviting the UPU to this event, and also the government and people of Barbados for your incredible hosting. So thank you very much. With this, I don't know exactly what format are we going to follow, if it's going to be Q&A or if I should go through the slides briefly. So I'll go briefly through the slides. Thanks. Maybe we'll move into the first one. So on these slides, we are trying to highlight the benefits of considering interfacing UNCTAD's ASI Hub post solution with our UPU customs declaration system. And basically, so the key takeaway is that the integration of CDS and ASI Hub post offers a customizable solution within the ASICUDA single window environment. And it should deliver many benefits, among which would be the automated exchange of data between post and customs, the ability for customs to pre-categorize postal items based on their characteristics, so content, format, de minimis thresholds, and these other aspects. Customs would be able to utilize postal supply chain data in an optimal way for enhanced efficiency. So these are terms and concepts that other colleagues have raised. But also the ability to have a tailored, simplified declaration process designed specifically for postal items exchanged in the frame of the UPU convention. Pre-arrival processing capacities or capabilities and advanced risk management functionalities are, of course, part of the benefits. Moving on, I'd like to maybe delve a little bit more into the categorization of postal items, and mindful of time, I'll try to be quick through this presentation. So how to categorize postal items for pre-arrival risk assessment? Well, first and foremost, you have to keep in mind that there are the lettered post items that just contain correspondence and documents. They don't contain goods, so this could fit into a category 1 and potential automatic release upon arrival. We would then have a category 2 of consignments, which would be low-value consignments, and this would contain non-dutable goods or goods that are just subject to value-added taxes or other aspects. And they can be treated based on the data that is provided by the designated postal operator. Category 3 would be those requiring a simplified declaration for release. So basically these low-value dutable consignments, and they would need a reduced data set. So with the advanced data, you can categorize the items before their arrival in the country, and this can then expedite the customs clearance. And maybe just to reflect on one of the slides that was presented before in relation to Vanuatu's project and how postal consignments have, the customs clearance has been reduced by 67%, so customs clearance times. So that's a significant improvement. And then maybe moving on to the last category, which would be the high-value consignments that you every now and then also find in the postal stream. So this would be category 4, and it would be possible to flag them based on the data and, of course, perform other risk assessment and analysis to be able to identify them and treat them accordingly upon arrival. If we move on to the next slide, we will see some of the challenges. We heard Özlem speak about challenges identified by the WCO in the single single window compendium. And here, when we undertake this very specific postal implementation project where we're looking at interfacing the system of the post office or of the designated postal operators, as we call them in the UPU world, with the ASICUDA world system from customs, there are 3 key dimensions. One is, I guess, on the regulatory part, the need to consider and to ensure compliance with data privacy and data protection regulations and ensure that the comprehensive and appropriate data sharing agreements have been reached with other national postal administrations and also with the different stakeholders involved in the data exchanges. On the technical side, of course, both systems offer a variety of options on how to combine and how to integrate the data. The key channel is this messaging standard that we jointly developed with the WCO. So it's the WCO UPU CAS-IT and CAS-RSP messaging standard. But then you have to look at other aspects such as the actual channel and methods, so whether it's an SFTP, an API. We won't delve too much into the technical detail, but it is, and I'm sure Jaime is aware of this kind of technical intricacies. Then, last but not least, we have to consider the functional or operational part. When we are receiving postal data, the postal data corresponds to the so-called CN22, CN23 postal customs declaration forms. On these forms, not all elements are mandatory. So I'll pick an example, which is, for instance, the HS codes, which, especially in the case of C2C or social postal items, they are not provided by the sender. From a UPU regulations perspective, they are recommended for commercial items, but they will only become mandatory for commercial items from September 2025. This was approved by our Postal Operations Council, but it's not yet in place. So you will still receive some items lacking HS codes, and these are elements that need to be somehow breached with the customs system. So from a functional perspective, we are collaborating with the WCO, with all our members, the designated operators, and other parties to try to advance towards the streamlining these postal customs declaration processes to enable a more precise categorization and processing of the items upon arrival. And then, if I'm not wrong, in the last slides, we provide a few examples of projects that we have conducted. And if I'm not wrong, that's a video, so you can play it while I speak. So the image in the center. So there we are. So basically, in 2018, an initial proof of concept initiative was undertaken in Gibraltar's outbound streams, pioneering risk management strategies for postal items using this particular interface between the UPU customs declaration system and the Asicuda world. Then building upon this project, we started a project in Georgia, which was supported by our Quality of Service Fund. And we expanded the integration to other UPU systems, so for instance, for track and trace of items. And this allowed the, let's say, integration of arrival notifications into the ASI hub stream, so we could clearly distinguish the pre-arrival process with the post-arrival processing. Now, in the video that we're showing, this is a mobile app that we have developed with our designated operators, and our Postal Technology Center provides, if I'm not wrong, there are currently 40 designated postal operators using this mobile app. Basically, it pushes the burden of data capture to the customer of the post. So the social sender of the item can provide the data before going to the post office. The CN22, CN23 postal customs declaration form is printed at the post office, and rather than to try to do the process the other way around, where in the past, it used to be a paper form that senders of international mail items would handwrite, and then the postal operator at origin would have to try to make sense of what's written on that form to send the data in advance. So other projects beyond the ones we mentioned with Gibraltar and Georgia, so other projects in countries like Cambodia, Moldova, Mongolia, and Vanuatu have demonstrated widespread interest from member countries, and as we mentioned, in Vanuatu, 67% reduction of customs clearance times. But of course, Stanley can probably comment more on that aspect. With this, if I'm not wrong, that will be the last slide. So if you can move to the next, there we are. So if there are any questions, maybe I'd like to mention, as Awesome did, if anyone wants to reach out to the UPU on these projects or on similar opportunities, you can write to us to customs@upu.int. So customs@upu.int. Otherwise, you can also talk to me offline, and I will be more than happy to guide you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you very much, Javier. I think we are actually out of time. Are we? We are out of time. We cannot take. Can we take one question or two? Okay, one question. Who has the one question for a panel where we spoke about what's taking place in El Salvador, which is far more complex than some of our island states because of the land-based transactions. We heard about what's happening in Jamaica. We heard about Vanuatu and the benefits that have accrued to both countries with respect to both volume of trade that's taking place plus revenue generation, and then the opportunities for services provided by World Customs Organization and the UPU, which can actually help to move our countries forward and to have greater access to transformation of our services. So the one question, what is the one question? Owen.
Thank you, Chair. I have many, right? This is for Andre. In relation to the OGAs, as we seek to build up the single window in Barbados, right, the issue of incorporating the OGAs in the system is continues to be that region-wide problem of getting there in the system. So I already said that you have 17 entities
In the Ascura system, but 12 in the single window, yes.
Right, so the same thing now.
Yeah.
Therefore, what could you give us? I see you have the leader of the single window here.
All right.
Could you give us an idea as to what techniques you use to get the system?
Well, the first and foremost, which was shown on the diagram that the WCO spoke about the political will, that is support for change at the ministerial level. That is absolutely important. In regards to the heads of entities as well and their supporting team, the subject matter experts, there has to be a clear relationship of trust, being very transparent in regards to the objectives. The fear is always job loss. There's resistance to technology, a number of things. They need to be very clear that this is a partnership which is for the mutual improvement of our services, right? While they go to the OGAs, they're also the clients of customs as well. So being very, very clear with the objectives and keeping them in the loop and having a very robust change management engagement with the OGAs. We have used that as our means of fostering greater cooperation. At times, you may find that this also may not be enough. There are persons who may stand in the way of progress. And of course, that is where the ministerial involvement or interventions have to be called upon. All in all, once they're clear and they're seeing the benefits and it does elevate the roles and responsibilities, then I find that you'll find greater buy-in as you continue to onboard other agencies and you'll have faster adoption.
Okay, thank you very much to our panel. I really apologize to Jose Luis that we didn't have simultaneous translation, but we were very pleased that you could participate because what you had to contribute was very important to looking at particularly, the seamless movement of goods between Honduras, Salvador, and Guatemala. So very, very important that if you can do it by land, we should be able to do it by sea. So this is something, we have something to learn from you. And the experience that we've seen from the two countries that are represented here is that it is possible. It is possible, even with the limited political will that we have. I think the political will is something which obviously is visible in El Salvador. And in Barbados, we earlier on heard the Minister of Finance speaking. But even with that strength, there are still challenges when we're talking in Jamaica about 20 plus agencies. I'm not sure how many agencies we're talking about in Vanuatu. 7 so far, and then more to come. So this is a very complex process. And since we have development partners in the audience, I think that there is an underestimation of the change management requirements that are necessary, and that you have a capacity, perhaps within government, that is a machinery of change management. And this is something which I think is mission critical if we are going to see transformation in a time place which is what are we saying here now?
Nothing.
We need to finish. So with that, I want to thank the panel. I want to thank you all for participating and look forward to moving on to our next panel. Thank you so much.